The Kansas City Chiefs traveled into New York to blow out the New York Jets, but that did not happen. Why my prediction on the Chiefs routing the New York Jets was completely wrong in what happened in that game. We're looking forward to the Vikings versus Chiefs game here at the end of the podcast we're going to go over. This is the TPT Podcast.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the TPT Podcast. TPT Podcast, the TPT Podcast.
Well, everyone, Sunday night football did not go how I thought it was going to go. I thought the Kansas City Chiefs were going to waltz into New York and just blow out the New York Jets with Zach Wilson at quarterback. This was supposed to be the State Farm Bowl, but it was not. But that being said, shout out Zach Wilson. That's one of the first things I want to get into today is how great Zach Wilson played. A lot of people from day one of this season, since Aaron Rodgers has gotten hurt, has criticized Zach Wilson, and he outplayed a guy, a future Hall of Famer, in Patrick Mahomes. And it wasn't just by a little margin. He outplayed Mahomes by a well margin. Mahomes didn't have his best game, which we're going to get into. But Zach Wilson and the New York Jets, shout out to the Jets. They came in this game, and starting this game out 17-0, they were down 17, and it looked how I thought it was going to go, a blowout. But that was not the case. They got the safeties. They got a quick touchdown. They got the field goals they needed, and boom, just like that, they were back in this game. And the reason why we're going to break down some of those reasons why is I'm going to give you my 5 reasons why some things went good, my 5 reasons why they did bad. A little mix of both here. The first reason why it didn't go good is, one, you have a liability now, and something that is really, really, really concerning to me right now is Jawaan Taylor. Jawaan Taylor is the first reason why this game, and I don't like really ever pointing a blame on one guy, but right now, I'm so sorry. Jawaan Taylor, Chiefs Kingdom, is an absolute liability. Something needs to be done about Jawaan Taylor right now. They have to fix the Jawaan Taylor problem. He's got to stop getting penalties. He leads the NFL right now in penalties. That's the first problem, is Jawaan Taylor. And yes, you can look at the whole offensive line. A lot of people have issues with Donovan Smith. I typically don't think Donovan Smith is playing as bad as what people thought he was going to be, and compared to how he played last year in Tampa. I think Donovan Smith is playing just fine. My main concern is just 74. It's the false starts. It's the holding. That's got to stop. I think he's doing a fine job on the run aspect of the offensive line, but the pass blocking is atrocious. It's got to stop. So that's one of my first concerns, is what Jawaan Taylor was in that game was bad, and he cannot bring that into the Minnesota Vikings game. I think that was the first thing that kind of fell apart in this Chiefs game was, again, the Chiefs making plays, the penalties that set them back. I know a lot of people think, oh, the refs just love the Kansas City Chiefs and the penalty at the end of the game and all of that, which I'm going to get into. But the Kansas City Chiefs, they have these games where it's these weird type of games where they play down to these teams. They kind of sneak by, and then you're kind of leaving with a bad taste in your mouth on Monday. But you kind of got it done. They're going to have these games. They're probably going to have 2 or 3 more of these type of games where you look up and like, we should be blowing this team out, but they don't quite blow that team out. And shout out again, shout out to the Jets. Their defense is a very good defense, and I think that's what kept them in this game. Is you had a team like the New York Jets stay in this game because of their defense. Zach Wilson made plays. If they can kind of have that type of formula they had versus the Kansas City Chiefs, they can beat some of these teams and try to make a playoff put, but it all falls on Zach Wilson. From what he did, again, he played so well, but then there's the type of things where all he has to do is snap the ball and he fumbles the ball. And then it gives the Chiefs an opportunity to waste 7 minutes off the clock and go and win that game. So that's my only thing about the New York Jets. The New York Jets, played absolutely phenomenal. Played absolutely phenomenal. The Chiefs did play down to the level. Patrick Mahomes, that was one of my other takeaways, is I think Patrick Mahomes sometimes he has these type of games, and I don't know if it's a concern. I don't want to put it on my top 5 concerns, but it's one of my concerns for sure. It really should be dead last on my concerns is Patrick Mahomes sometimes not trusting certain guys, and I think he got a little too target happy with Travis Kelce and threw 2 meatballs. Like, let's be honest, Chiefs fans. He threw 2 meatballs in the air, just threw those up like a lob, and he even said it to himself, and he knows he did not play the game he should, which I think, sorry, Vikings fans, if you think that's going to carry into the next game, Mahomes after games like this is something, a guy you really got to look out for. But that was kind of, the ugly. You had Juwan Taylor was the ugly, and you had the bad, and the good part where I want to get into, and I still have some concerns on the other side of the Chiefs offense. But the good I want to get into is number 10. Number 10, IP Pacheco. Pacheco was back home in New Jersey. Absolutely phenomenal. As bad as the offensive line has played, as bad as some of the receivers have not been able to get open, because that was one of my concerns, the receivers not being able to get open, not really meshing with the offense yet under the second year with Mahomes. This offense, if they can continue to run the ball like they did versus New York Jets defense, this team can start setting up play action and start really getting big plays down the field, because that's what the Chiefs are missing right now. NBS is the number one guy I think has to step up, because they don't have that downfield threat. They don't have that downfield threat like they had in the past with Tyreek Hill. And again, last year, they had a guy like Juju Smith to be kind of their big play guy. The only guy that's really stepped up on the Chiefs receiving core right now is Watson and Rice. Rashee Rice has played phenomenal. I love how he's played. Yes, he has some drops problems, but he's the only receiver stepping up. I think MVS has to step up, be that down the field guy. They're getting no offense down the field, and I think that's a big concern of mine. That would be like my third concern is the down the field play for the Kansas City Chiefs. Why they can't really get things going down the field. But again, on the other note, you have a guy like Rice who is developing as a rookie. We have to understand the only real rookies to play in Andy Reid's offense since he's been a head coach is Deshaun Jackson, Jeremy Maclin, and Tyreek Hill. That's really it. Those 3 guys are the only receivers in 30-plus years of Andy Reid's head coaching to play. And if you have a guy like Rice who's consistently out there over 300 yards on the season, 2 touchdowns, played pretty well, had a great game versus the Bears. And again, it was an off game for the passing game for the Chiefs. But the way this line has been blocking for even guys like Clyde Edwards, Jerick McKinnon, but Pacheco, if you can keep running the ball with Pacheco like this, you can set up big-time short yard downage on third down, and you can keep those drives going because of how effective you're able to run the ball and set up play action. So that's something I thought went very, very well for the Chiefs in this game. The other thing I think that is still going well, and I know, again, it was versus Zach Wilson, but I still think the Chiefs defense is a top 8 to top 5 defense in this league. And again, even if people want to say, well, Jayden, they're playing against teams that are, the Bears, and the Jags are still not even clicking on all cylinders. And, the Lions are good, but they still have some concerns. If this Chiefs defense keeps getting the confidence like they're a top 3 defense, they're going to have that juice and that confidence every week going out there that they're a top 3 defense. So when they step foot on the field, they are absolutely ready to go. They're not, man, we gave up this many yards last week. And I'm not saying NFL guys have that type of mindset, but that will affect you in the long run, saying, man, we can't get off on third down. We can't get off on third down. Every time, the rubber meets the road in those type of situations. But now they're like, hey, man, we've done it in the past. We can do it again. We've held teams only 2 touchdowns. The way they're holding these teams right now, is absolutely astonishing. They're probably, outside the Buffalo Bills, one of the better defenses in the AFC. And you have the Buffalo Bills, and it's probably right there with the Kansas City Chiefs. You have teams like the Ravens as well, and the Bengals. But right now, the Bengals have struggled badly, having to get rid of some of their players like Jesse Bates, and some of these other guys that the Bengals had to let go. So right now, I mean, this Chiefs defense is definitely a top 3 defense in the AFC. Let me know what you guys think about how well this Chiefs defense has played so far, because those are really the 2 things I think the Chiefs have done well this season is run the ball and play defense. It kind of reminds me of the 90s, even though the Chiefs are so used to having this Patrick Mahomes throw for 40 times a game. But when you have a guy like Isaiah Pacheco, you can start to run the ball with. This will set up big time third downs and try to set up big plays because teams are going to have to stack the box and they're not going to be able to put that safety so high on the Kansas City Chiefs to try to limit their big play ability. That's when you can have a guy like MVS really take it over the top. And that's really one of my main concerns I mentioned before is MVS going downfield. I think this is what's going to start setting up is running the ball. And another thing I really wanted to get off my chest about the Chiefs is I feel like Andy Reid at times he saves things, he saves plays, and he kind of sits there and he wants to save. It's almost like not that he takes it easy on teams, but there's more left in the bag for him to go for the Kansas City Chiefs. I feel like at times he's not putting his best foot forward and setting up the team on the offensive side of the ball. Sometimes I think we sometimes just get into patty cake mode, especially when we're up at the end of the games. And I'm not saying when Patrick Mahomes slid and ran the clock out, that was the right thing to do. But it was more so just, again, when we're up by 3, not taking shots. And before that drive, really, luckily the Chiefs end up getting a turnover. And I was sitting there watching the game with my dad and one of my buddies, and I was kind of saying, we need to get a turnover. That's when that turnover came in from Zach Wilson. But I feel like sometimes this Chiefs offense does try to play it safe a little too much. When you have a guy like Patrick Mahomes, you really have to let it rip. But that being said, right now, you also can't really let it rip when you don't have the trust in some of your receivers. So that's where the Chiefs really have to just take care of going into this next week versus the Vikings, because I knew ultimately the Chiefs were going to get it done versus this Jets team. But going into Minnesota next week, and we're going to have a lot of guests this upcoming week, guys, and really breaking down what the Chiefs have to do versus this Minnesota Vikings squad. We're going to have a lot of guests breaking down how the Vikings can stop the Chiefs and how the Chiefs can stop the Vikings, because this Vikings team coming up, guys, they got Justin Jefferson, they got TJ Hawkins, they got Jordan Addison, they got KJ Osborne, they got playmakers. They also just brought in a guy like Cam Akers. They're going to have guys on the offensive side of the ball. I know they don't have a great offensive line. I know they don't have a great defense, but they're going to have the star power on offense. I think this is a game where the Chiefs really have to be firing all cylinders. And Patrick Mahomes is really, again, right now, Patrick Mahomes just is not looking like Mahomes. He's really got to step his game up. And that also comes with the receivers stepping their games up. So let me know what you guys think on how some of the Chiefs receivers can step their game up and what receivers need to step their game up going into this game versus the Minnesota Vikings, because it's a big time game. I know for me and a lot of people at TBT Podcast, we have a lot of people here on the TBT Podcast crew, a lot of people that I know that are big-time Vikings fans. This is a big game for me especially. Let me know what you guys think of some of the things you saw in this Jets game that we need to stop and not have carry over to this Minnesota Vikings game. Make sure you guys comment below. Make sure you guys also, of course, go check us out on Spotify. If you want to listen to this podcast over on Spotify, you want to listen to it over, of course, on YouTube. And follow us on all social media at the TBT Podcast. We will see you guys later on in the week for more Chiefs content going over the Chiefs versus Vikings. We will see you guys later on the TPT Podcast.